people? It's your boy Tony G. Tony Guns back at y'all with another one. Today, first order of business is and always is building leaders and creating kings operation by building national development over generations. I want to come and I want to talk to y'all about something that's important. I feel like this is a topic that's not really touched on quite often. A topic that's not really spoken on too often. And I want to shed light on it real quick, so just follow me. I think we don't really realize the impact that sometimes our words, the profound impact that our words have on, unfortunately, what has become our societal norms. Some of our societal norms, some of our more diabolical societal norms, some of our more harsh realities and societal norms. You say, so what you talking about, Gunner? Like, we shed light on so many different negative things that those things start to truly come into fruition. For instance, with the mass shootings, with mass shootings and things of that nature, we've always had mass shootings. As long as I can remember, as long as I've been born, I've heard at one point or another about a different mass shooting. But the thing is, to me, it seems like it's more prevalent now. It's more prevalent now. Even some of those guys that do commit some of these mass shootings, they've even said, they've admitted themselves that they became famous because of that. They've admitted themselves. They've studied some of the individuals, the sick individuals that has been made public and famous because of something as sick as committing what I would consider an act of terrorism, but committing genocide on unsuspecting innocent individuals. I don't know if this was a preconceived notion that they may have had prior to, had they not had this mass shooting broadcasted all over different media outlets. Old media, new media, social media, more formal media outlets. All over the place. I feel like that's what played a major role, if not the key contributor, outside of the fact that obviously something is wrong with these individuals that's able to go and produce such an ill intention, bring about such an ill intention into the world. It's obviously something loose upstairs. But deeper than that, we're creating more and more and more of these instances where it can happen just by blasting it all over. And that's not to suggest that when these catastrophic events happen that it shouldn't be approached, shouldn't be talked about. How else will we know about what's going on? It has to be something that can take place in order for us to be more responsible with that information, and or just smash them all together, get rid of them and bury them. That's my solution. Get rid of those individuals that do it, bury them. And of course, you're going to have those family members and things of that nature that say, well, this happened to my child, this happened to my kid, this happened to my mother, sister, brother, cousin, aunt, whoever. And it went without being talked about. It went without being spoken. No one talked. My thing is, if the county, the state, the city, the area, wherever it may have happened, as long as they take care of it and they do what needs to be done, then why do it need to be national news? Because what we fail to realize is when it becomes national news, you're creating and perpetuating some of those same monsters to in turn do it again. Let's take it away from something like that real quick, and let's speak to, I was having a conversation with a few people the other day, and the topic of the conversation was about gay people in our families. You know, being raised around gay individuals in our family, having gay brothers and sisters and cousins and aunts and uncles and things of that nature. In the conversation, I was kind of taken back by the conversation, not due to the fact of the gay conversation, But one of the individuals I was talking to has spoken on how one of her siblings was gay. They didn't know at the time. Well, I don't know, family members thought they always knew at one point or another that this individual was probably going to be gay. But the thing that I was taken back by it was her love was so profound for this individual that another individual, she approached another individual that she deeply loves because something transpired between the one that was supposedly gay and, you know, somebody that they love. And her approach to this individual, to the second individual, or third party, I would guess, in this situation was that if her sibling kills their self because of your unacceptance or unwilling to deal with, interpret, understand, rationalize, and sympathize with what they're dealing with, then we're going to have a problem. Now, instantly, the point that she was trying to make, I understood. She was trying to say her love is so intense for this individual, if for whatever reason they're drawn to that point or to that aspect, that she's going to take it out on, you know, so forth and so on. But the thing that, all of that I understood, but it went in one end out the other to a certain degree, because the only thing that didn't sit well with me in that conversation was the fact that the seed that she unknowingly planted, that if for whatever reason this person isn't accepted, then there's an option. And the option that was presented, obviously, not on purpose. It was done unconsciously. But the option that was presented is, if you're not accepted, then what you do is kill yourself. We have to be mindful of the things that we say, because even if, and to her credit, she said that I didn't necessarily say that in front of him. This was a conversation that the antagonist, so to speak, or the perpetrator, so to speak, there was a conversation that they had back and forth. But what she don't realize is we're in a conversation with a group of people that you just said that to. So maybe you didn't plant that in your siblings' head, but you're talking to several different people that in turn have that same information, that retains that information, and now they're spreading it. Because that's what it is. It's a seed. That's literally what it is. It's a seed that you plant. You plant it, but not only is it a seed that you plant, it's a seed that grows. It becomes invasive. It's a seed that literally grows and becomes invasive. Hard to kill, hard to get rid of, and it spreads tremendously fast. Tremendously fast. So maybe you did not say that to your sibling, but you in turn planted that same seed in several other individuals that were listening, that may in turn be that individual that plant that seed into their siblings' head. That now we live in a society that if you're not accepted for whatever choices you make, that the outlet is death and you murdering yourself. Now granted, obviously that's not what is being said. No one is suggesting if we don't like you or we don't like what you're into that you should kill yourself. But because we always talk about it so much, because fact of the matter, gays have been gay as long as we've been living. We've had gay people as long as we've been living. Now I haven't been living for a long time, so I can't speak on that too much. But I'm almost certain that we've had gays as long as we've been living. And I'm also certain that with those gay individuals, they wasn't killing themselves as often as they are now. And what I'm trying to explain is, we plant that seed in their heads. Let's take it away from the gate there. Teenage suicides is becoming ever prevalent in our communities, where at one point it really wasn't that. And they're saying it's because of bullying. Bullying, again, just like gays, has been going on since the dawn of humanity. I'm almost certain of it. Bullying has gone on, and no one, or very, not to say no one, it has happened. but it has not been happening at the rate that it happens now. It happens at the rate that it happens now because we put it in these individuals' faces all the time. Subconsciously, they're thinking of killing themselves when they're not accepted. They're thinking of killing themselves when they're bullied, because that is something that they consider is another option. Why? Because they've been told that that is an option. They haven't been told that if you're getting bullied, you should kill yourself. No, that's not how it goes. That's not how it goes. No, they're not being told if you're being bullied, you should go out there and kill yourself. Out and out like that. No, that's not how that goes. How they're being told is by constantly blasting the news of this person, little Tiana or little Craig or little Michael or John was being bullied in the 4th and 5th grade. So he decided that enough was enough, that his presence wasn't appreciated in his world enough, so he decided to off himself or herself. Because that's being put in our faces so much, that becomes our societal norms. It becomes our societal norms. We don't realize that. Let's take it away from that. Let's take it away from that. Let's take it away from death. Now I want to put on a few strings right now. A few heartstrings. Want to get under a few people's skin. We don't realize as black people, we do the same thing for our own, for ourselves. We do the same thing for our own goddamn selves. We constantly talk about how hard life is for black men, how hard life is for black women, how many obstacles it is for black men and women, for black people, for black families, for black communities. We constantly talk about that so often, and that's not to suggest that it isn't. Trust me when I tell you I've been through some hardships, my family has been through some hardships, my people has been through some hardships. We have. That's not to say that obstacles have not been presented. Trust me, they have. But if we constantly perpetuate that same thing, if we constantly being told that we are weaker for it, we are weaker for it, then we are constantly in that state of mind, that state of intelligence, that state of intellect, that state of thought, that we are weaker for it. As opposed to utilizing those same obstacles as catapults to take us to these different levels. Utilizing those same, but we constantly being in schools, constantly being indoctrinated with the fact that we were slaves. I wish to God, I promise you, I hope I don't see another slave movie in my life. I hope to God I don't see another slave movie in my life. I can't stand it. And in our minds, we think we're doing ourselves a great service by constantly bringing that to light. They always say little slick segues that if we don't remember our past, then we're destined to reenact that. That may be true. That may be true. May or may not, I don't know. But I don't think that that holds true for slavery in and of itself, or by itself, or in its entirety. Because the only thing that suggests to little black boys and girls is in school is that this is who we are. This is what we are. This is what we have to overcome, and this is continually what we're going to always have to deal with. And that may be true to a certain degree. But all you're doing is creating weakness, sustaining a weak mindset. You say, how? Because what you think you're doing is setting a fire under these young men and women. But what you're really doing is making them inferior. Now let me explain that to you real quick. You say, Gunnar, what you mean? Let me explain that. See, I grew up in a neighborhood where it was predominantly black. Went to schools that was predominantly black. Had predominantly black teachers in my school. But they still taught a lot of that same curriculum. Because oftentimes with city schools and things of that nature, you're given a curriculum that comes from across the board. It's not just this school decides to teach this and they make their own decisions. No, it's across the board, so everybody's being taught this. Black schools, white schools, whatever. But then when we have those topics brought about, those history lessons brought about, and we talked about how we were slaves. Imagine the young black girl and the young black boy in that class. Imagine when we're watching those movies. You know, we had those movie days. When we're watching those movies, Roots and things of that nature. Imagine when we're watching those movies. Our imaginations are so powerful. Our mind is so powerful. And naturally, any and everything that we come in contact with, oftentimes, we rationalize it from our perspective. We try to bring it into who we are. We try to make it or understand it or interpret it from our level of understanding and interpretation. So what that means is, when we watch these different movies, it's almost inevitable for the young black girl or the young black boy to see themselves as the slave. They're always going to see themselves as the slave. Because the person in that movie, in that story, looks like them. They're never going to see themselves as the slave master, because that person don't look like them. They're automatically going to see themselves in the slave. They automatically see that movie or hear that story and picture themselves. And guess what they thinking? It'll never be me. That couldn't be me. I'm not doing this. If I were them, I would do it this way. Automatically. But then, imagine that same psyche in a young white girl or a young white boy's mind. When he sees that, they don't look at it like, that could never be me being brutalized like that. They look at it as, I would never do that. I would never do that. I would never be the perpetrator. I would never own slaves. I would never treat people in that manner. They automatically see themselves from a superior perspective. Whereas the young black men and women automatically see themselves and imagine themselves in an inferior level or perspective. And this is what is constantly being perpetuated and taught in our school system. Now granted, I'm not saying by any stretch of the imagination that history, that part of our history, which is a small part of our history, small part of our history, which had a large and lasting impact, but a small part of our history. I'm not saying that shouldn't be studied, analyzed, taught. But goddamn, we were kings, we were queens, we were warriors, we were scholars. We were much, much more than slaves. But all of that information, which is still history, we got to do what? We got to go search for that. That isn't just ever prevalent in our schools. That isn't just something they just give to us on automatically. We have to go look for that. We have to do research on that. Oftentimes it comes through college courses that we find out a little bit more about our history, who we truly are, who our people were, where we come from, what lands we inhabited, so forth and so on. We have to dig to find that information. So why not have to dig, if that's what you're into, find information about slavery, about the lashes you took, about a master at one point or another you had. Why not put it in there like that? I'm not saying permanently eradicate it. What I'm saying is make them people do work for it. If that's something that you're into, you want to study that, you choose to study that. Stop indoctrinating our kids with that understanding and interpretation at an early age of themselves as an inferior people. Because that's what you're doing inevitably. That's what you're doing. We can't see ourselves as the victor in those stories, in those movies. We can't see ourselves that way. So we grow up with that stigma. And yeah, do we say we never going to let that happen? Absolutely. So white people, this is why. This is why we grow up with that chip on our shoulder, even if you aren't the one that actually did that to us. Because we constantly been indoctrinated. If we were always seen as king and queens and warriors and scholars, if that was all we knew, if that was all we were taught, that chip, that aggression that y'all say that we have wouldn't need to be there. Now it might bring about other problems like snobbish or some shit like that, but that's a good problem to have. when you feel good about yourself, when you walk with that authority. We have to do a better job and understand that these things that we shed light on, these negative things that we shed light on, so much has a great, engraved, profound impact on the psyche, on the psyche of our kids, of our society. That young man sitting in his father's garage, building a bomb, didn't grow up his entire life saying that I'm going to be a bomb maker and decide that I'm going to destroy hundreds of bodies just because. He finds some way, shape, form, or fashion to relate to these idiot, sick individuals. He finds the smallest thing that he can relate to them with. Again, not accepted. Don't have friends. May have been bullied. Find the smallest thing that he can relate to. And he travels far enough down that rabbit hole that he believes that he identified with this asshole. Or these people that are doing these heinous acts. He believes he identifies with them. So much so becomes a part of who he is. And now he makes a decision, conscious decision, to not only think about these people, to not only understand these people, rationalize these people, but to then, in turn, embody these sick individuals. We continuously do that. Media, social media, formal media, old media, new media. We continue to do that. Families, cultures. We continue to perpetuate that. That's just something to think about. I ain't gonna talk y'all head off. What I want y'all to do, hit that thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Other than that, comment. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Give me your opinion on it. Let me know how you feel. Let me know if there's some things that you felt I was wrong about. I ain't gonna feel no type of way. We can go back and forth. I don't mind an intellectual conversation. I'm a real big speaker. I'm just not a real big talker. And that's a real big difference. I don't just have just conversations for no reason. I'm not the social butterfly. I'm not going in a group of individuals to just talk to them about nothing, just shoot the breeze. If I'm going to have a conversation with you or any individuals or a group of individuals, it's going to be something of meaningful dialogue. Building Leaders and Creating Kings operation by building national development over generations. Make sure that we keep that in mind. This is who we are. We are who we are because it's culture that's created. Some of it has been good and to our benefit. Others has been bad and to our detriment. It's on us to talk and truly decipher. Until then, live strong or die weak. You man shit, ain't no pressure. Black Ops Bang Dog.